talking about the cost, I'd like to know if all of you are in favor of, and do you feel comfortable with asking the voters to pay for a bond issue or a tax increase to help fund the construction? Mrs. Brose.
I think it's important to recognize that we have done a really good job with the process of reaching the community and letting them know that the way the intermediate school stands today is not acceptable for our students and our teachers. And I think the community recognizes that and supports it. I think the concerns are, what is it going to look like and how much is it going to cost? And so the question of supporting a tax issue to me becomes, if I'm going to support it, I want to be able to go to people and say, this is how much we need, this is exactly what we will get, and with these funds we will not have to ask you again. And I think part of being able to do that is having a 20-year plan so that we know, buildings are going to need new roofs. There is maintenance on all our buildings that is going to need to happen. And if we can start communicating that with the community in advance, then they know that this is on the radar and this is part of the process, and this has been covered in the financial plan, and this is a surprise. And I think we could do a better job of doing that proactively. I also think we have a bond operating levy coming up, and that is a very important priority for our district. We need those funds to pay our teachers and heat our buildings and keep our schools running at the level that we expect. And we need to balance the immediacy of the needs of this building with making sure that that operating levy passes and that we have the community support to do that. And to do that, we need to make sure that the community feels good about how we're taking care of their funds.
Okay, Mr. Kashi.
I'm going to ask you for clarification. When you say taxes, do you mean real estate taxes, income taxes?
A bond issue.
Just a bond issue?
Yes.
Okay. I think we first have to look at what our bond, how much money we can borrow. Some of these projects might be over our borrowing limit, and that we would have to consider alternative financing. That being the case, you can't ask for, the whole bond issue to be, well, you can. I don't know if I would be in favor of doing a whole bond issue and then finishing it up with permanent improvement fund financing. Again, this is all, a hypothetical because we don't have a clear-cut plan of what we're doing. We're going to be in a position where we can talk about all these things, but we really can't get to an answer. You have to borrow money to build buildings. That's just it. And if it's through a bond, through PI, then it all comes out of the same pocket, our taxpayers.
Mm-hmm. Mrs. Thomas?
Unfortunately, for Chagrin Falls, we're not like many other districts in the state, where we are not eligible for state facilities money because we are considered, in quotations, a rich district. And the reason we're a rich district is because we have a very engaged, educated community that supports our schools. So we will have to go to the taxpayers for the full amount of any kinds of construction projects we will be doing. But I think I think the best way to talk about this is not to just focus on one building. We have many needs in the district. We have another aging elementary school where if you look behind the walls, there's a lot of work to be done. We have an aging high school. So when we talk about going forward with a bond issue, we need to look at the total construction project that we need to do, what our debt capacity is, and how we want to do that. It's a little disturbing to me to hear some of the candidates say that we don't have a plan for our facilities. We've done a detailed facilities plan over the past few years, and it was done again several years ago. And because we only take $400,000 out of our general fund and do not have a permanent improvement fund, a permanent improvement levy, we only have limited funds to do the work. So that is something that we need to look to the future to do.
That's okay.
Hi. Well, first of all, I would spend your money the way I would spend my money, which is with very thoughtful research and reflection before going forward. And I think that's really important that we realize this is public money. We are asking our residents to invest in our schools. And so the work that needs to be done, I think, has gotten started, but this current board does not have a long-term facility plan that goes out 10, 20 years and projects what all of these buildings are going to need. How could we go to the voters and ask for them to open their wallets unless we can say we have researched this, we know exactly what we need, and we're not going to be coming back to you again? That work still needs to be done, and I'd like to be on the board to help make that happen.
Mr. Weingart.
I would feel comfortable asking the voters to pass a bond issue to fund a building because, as Mrs. Thomas said, that's the situation that we're in based on our school district. There is no other way, a primary way to fund the project. I think that we're not at the point to present the voters with a bond issue because of the uncertainty of what the needs of the district and the different buildings are. I think more importantly, the need is going to be an operating levy or a permanent improvement vote is going to be required to keep the schools operating in the manner that we're used to. Again, I think that we will be asked to put a bond issue in front of the voters, but as we've all heard, I don't think any of us agree that we're ready to do that yet until we're certain what our long-term plan is.
Mr. Hogan.
Well, I agree. I don't know if there's an alternative. I don't know that any of us can write a $30 million check ourselves. So I think we would be obligated to ask voters for a bond issue if we come to a conclusion or the decision is made that we, want to go forward with a building project. But again, it's a community decision. It's not my decision. It's not the board's decision. I mean, we can ask that. That's all we can do. We can't impose taxes on the community. So that's pretty much all we can do is come up with a proposal and put it to the community for a vote and see what happens.
Any other thoughts?
I'd like to say that, one of the most important roles of a board member is to be a financial steward to the school district. And part of what we've touched on in this conversation is that $400,000 is not enough money to maintain our buildings. And that's a part of the problem that we need to solve simultaneously. We can't be in a situation where we're building new buildings while we watch the others fall to disrepair. And right now, someone mentioned that Gurney has some serious needs as well. We have a portion of Gurney where we haven't even finished paying off the debt on that building. So it's complicated to go to the community and say, we want to tear down this building and build a brand new one. Oh, but by the way, we haven't finished paying for it. So in addition to a 20-year facilities plan, I think we need to figure out how much money do our buildings need to be maintained the way we need them to be on a regular basis, and how are we going to address that need?
Mr. Kashi?
Yeah, I worked on the operating levy campaign 3 years ago, or in 2011 when it was when we had it. And an interesting fact about Chagrin is that 83% of our revenue comes from residential taxpayers. We have virtually no commercial tax base. So when we go and when we ask the residents to give, to pass a levy, it's really coming out of our residents' pocket. And we don't have the ability to have somebody else help, like industry.